Hello, and welcome to Freethought Forum, a program brought to you by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Sam Geltz.
And I'm Joe Barnhart.
And we'd like to tell you, if you don't believe in God, you are not alone, even in East Tennessee. Today we want to tell you happy holidays, especially to Bill the Grinch. He can't steal our happy holiday, can he? I bet Santa brought him a lump of coal, right?
So we're dealing with the very difficult question called the meaning of life. What does that mean? And we're going to talk about it. Very intelligent people have tried to deal with this question, and we were going to try, in our way, to try to come up with something to see what we can.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to tell our viewers what the meaning of life is, just well enough. We invite you to call in at 215-2288. Just call in anytime. We have a few announcements before we can get into our topic. The RET and Ask events next month at the University of Tennessee will be holding a lecture. Does the New Testament contain forgeries? The Surprise Claims of Modern Scholars by Bart D. Ehrman. It's Thursday, January 27th, 2011 at 5 p.m. at the University Center Auditorium at West Cumberland Avenue. Reception will follow at the UC Crest Room. Arnhart is an expert on the New Testament manuscript tradition, the early Christian and apocalyptic fathers, and the historical
Jesus question.
Yeah.
In fact, he's a very good scholar at the University of North Carolina. He is chairman of the department of religion studies there, and has written a number of books on this theme. He studied in a very conservative school, and then did. By conservative, I really mean not just conservative, it was pretty much right-wing, not conservative in that respect. And then he moved in other directions. Most of us move in various directions, and it will be interesting to see how he developed in his way of thinking. But now to the meaning of life question. What does it mean? Well, we can look in the dictionary and get the meaning of a word. But have you noticed sometimes you find 2 or 3 meanings, 4 or 5 meanings sometimes, and we often hear the meaning of a word is according to the context. And so a meaning doesn't just drop in out of the blue. And the interesting thing is a context has a context, and then that context has a concept. So words all interrelate with each other to help make, say, a poem. So you can ask the meaning of a poem. You remember in high school, the teacher asked you the meaning of a poem, and you thought, it's not that easy to do. In fact, one of my friends said he gave the meaning, and the teacher said no. The next week, the author was on television and seemed to agree with the student. But you can sometimes say that the poet might have had amnesia or Alzheimer's, and he can't remember the meaning.
Yeah, a lot of these things can be open to interpretation. You can say the same things about life.
But they're not a Rorschach test. Yeah. So there's another thing, is that one time a person will say, well, life no longer has any meaning. What's that person saying? What do you think he's saying?
Some people can feel so such despair over their lives that they don't see any reason to continue living.
And that's the use of the word meaning. In other words, the meaning of a word is not for me or you to tell people how to use a word. Is we have to see the meaning of a word is the way people use it. And that's what the dictionary does. It collects the way the words have been used and the general agreement on it. The problem with the meaning of life question is there isn't all that general agreement, but there are some aspects of it in which we think we can hem it in a corner, but not nail it down.
And there are many questions that can get confused with the meaning of life, such as why are we here, how did we get here, and religion often tries to answer these questions their own way. And we're lucky enough to be living in an age now where we know how we got here with science, but that does not tell us how to live our lives.
Exactly. That's a good point.
How to live our lives from science. We know how we got here. Religion tries to do both. It tries to tell you where you came from, why you're here, and where you're going to be going.
And we can learn from traditions, partly from their mistakes and partly from their successes. And the same with science. You can't just do ethics regardless of science, but on the other hand, science just doesn't dictate what ethics would be. We have to interact. So that's part of a meaningful life, is just as words have to interact in a sentence and in a whole poem or a whole novel or a book, so lives have to interact with each other, and that's the meaning in the interaction.
You can't look at a question like this as just black and white. You need to look at the human aspect of it.
Exactly.
You have to have some heart into it, because we're our society and we all want to get along, right?
Yeah, it's human beings who ask the question.
Yes. Yeah.
And
there's no objectivity that you can place on this.
Take the part of, I think sometimes people understandably raise the question, the meaning of life, whenever some tragedy takes place or something happens in life that's so hard to handle, and you say, you want to say, if you're these people, understandably, how does my pain and sorrow and grief fit in to a broader pattern?
Yeah.
You see, and it's like a play. Here is a part, say, by a villain, you see, but the villain itself, or himself or herself, plays a part in the play. And so people want their lives to have some meaning outside of just themselves. And there, I think you use the word society and community, which makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Meaning of life for some people could be finding your place within society, finding your place within your family, finding your place
your
somewhere.
career.
Everyone needs to feel wanted, to feel a part of something, and that's a part of people trying to find the meanings of their own lives.
Yeah, what would life be without friends?
Yes. But you do need to look for the meaning of your life on your own. Mm-hmm. You can't expect someone to tell it to you, not some guy on TV or not some preacher from a pulpit either.
No one can tell. And you can help me discover some of my talents, but I have to say, this is what is of value. See, the word meaning sometimes means value.
Yeah. What's
of value to me? What's worth getting up about? You see, in the morning, and that's part of what we say is meaning. It's what drives us to keep going and makes us cheerful whenever, say, circumstances aren't always so cheerful objectively.
A lot of religious people will say that atheists, since we don't believe in an afterlife, that how could we see such meaning? Because we're not planning on, existing forever. Mm-hmm. We don't have a predestined place that we're planning on going, a heaven or a hell. But I think that makes being here mean so much more, because...
Yeah, that's an interesting point. You could go to heaven and say, you mean this is it?
Yeah.
I'm going to be singing forever and ever the same songs? Well, surely they're going to have more than this, more songs. And so no matter where you are, you see, you still have the same question, is this a meaningful life? And I remember a man came to my door once and said, well, no, where I'm going to go after I died. And I told him Danbridge. But we were just, and he said, and he kept pushing and pushing. And I said, well, are you going to be there? And he said, I sure am. He meant heaven. And he was so abrasive. I said, well, it's going to be a hell of a place. Which I was saying, if people like him were going to be there, it wouldn't be a very meaningful life.
Very good company.
Well, we finally understood each other.
Yeah.
He was just a human being. It was just aggressive salesman is what it was.
We're all human beings. We all have things in common. We all have things to see in each other that we can see in ourselves.
Well, in this town, football's the meaning of life.
Yes.
I have an orange shirt underneath. So, but you can understand this, you see. People find things that are vital to their lives. And, of course, that's just a small part, but that's understandable. But people, as you're pointing out, are different. There was the great pianist who spent hours and hours and years at the piano. He didn't like even doing concerts. Didn't even like doing recording. And of course, he was a great pianist. Yeah. If some people had the job I had teaching, it would not be a meaningful life for them. It was incredibly meaningful to me. Fortunately, my automobile mechanic finds that meaningful to him, because I'm a disaster under the hood, and I'm thankful for a good, meaningful mechanic.
Everyone needs to find something that makes them personally happy, because we're living this life. We want to get through it and make it as pleasant as possible for not only ourselves, but also the people
Other
around
people.
us.
And when somebody dies and said it, and they say she had a meaningful life, that often
She touched a lot of people.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Touched a lot of people, and we celebrate a life like that. Say, I wish there were more people like that.
Yeah.
Also, some people mean by the meaning of life that somebody has designed everything in life. Now, Calvin, for example, was a theologian,
Yeah.
and he apparently believed that all the great joys of life and all the great disasters, all the kind words, all the murders and the rapes and the deceptions and the wars and the killings and all the desserts and all the poisons, all of that was designed by some grand playwright. And according to Calvin, he designed for some of them to go to the great suburb in the sky, and for the majority of them to go to eternal damnation.
Yeah.
And he believed that some cosmic mind had created that, but it sounds more like a criminal mind.
Yes.
Maybe more like Calvin.
A lot of people say that you can't understand God's plan. I think that's really...
That's what they...
It's
and the reason is they can't figure out, well, how do you put all that together as one plan? And maybe there is no cosmic plan.
Just say
that's what some... And then if you're a polytheist, you say there are whole committees of gods, and they're always arguing. And then if you've got some versions, you've got a God, but he's also God as Satan. And they have a big battle, and they're in a constant feud. And for some reason, God didn't lock him up in the first place, apparently concerned about his civil liberties. And so
worried about him getting out later.
Yeah, and turns him loose so he can destroy Adam and Eve there and all their offspring. And that's supposed to be a great plot.
Yeah. Now, Christianity teaches us that we are sinful and that we were born sinful and that the purpose of our lives is to go to God, be with God. But seeing yourselves as a dirty human being, a sinful human being from birth, I think is a very negative outlook on a human being. When you look at another person, when you look at a baby.
You're born rotten, as it were. Now, I think, to be honest, we have to say our species is capable of incredible goodness and incredible destructiveness and harm.
Yeah.
I mean, we come this way. Now, we don't think that if you are an agnostic or a naturalist, you don't think it was designed by some cosmic intelligence. You think it evolved this way.
Yeah.
But if you do think a cosmic intelligence made it, then you still have to explain why he would make with so much misery and horror, and that's called the problem of theodicy.
Yeah.
And a great Puritan poet wrote Paradise Lost.
Oh, yeah, John Milton.
Trying to deal with this. And it's a great poem, but he ends up with God and Satan in a feud with a lot of collateral damage.
Yeah.
And the Bible has a lot of collateral damage for that. They say you drown most of the human race if you took any of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with it when you look at it that way. A lot of loopholes you have to write your way around, right?
They'd say, hey, that script needs to be rewritten, needs a rewrite.
Yeah, it's been, people have tried before.
Yeah.
People still do. I like to look at a meaning of life from a secular humanistic point of view.
Good.
Let me read this.
Good.
People determine human purpose without supernatural influence. It's human personality that is the purpose of a human being's life. Humanism seeks to develop and fulfill that. Humanism affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives, to fulfill our own personal, and aspire for the greater good of humanity. I think that's a good thing to aspire to.
Are there any callers? We'll open to see what our viewers
215-228-2288. If
we're very eager to hear from you.
Yeah, give us your views on the meaning of life. Maybe you don't have to be completely on topic, but it might be appreciated.